Hello and welcome to the Hands Up If You're Human podcast, an ongoing series of conversations dedicated to exploring the messy reality of being human. The truth is, there is nothing we can think, say, do, feel, or experience that isn't 100% human. So it's time to drop the guilt and the shame, embrace everything that we are, and start to create a life we really want to live. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Wyndham. I am the Blueprint Coach, and today I am joined by a special guest. Chartered occupational psychologist, a coach, professional speaker, rebel releaser, the host of WTF Women Talk Facts podcast, Queen of the Do, captain of culture at Work Pirates, and author of Girl Deprogramming, Unleash the Rebel Within. It is my great pleasure to welcome to the podcast, Michelle Minnikin. Welcome,
Thank
Michelle.
you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I've just realised I have too many jobs.
That's always the way. It's part of this kind of process. When I look into people to have on the show, it's like, wow, I don't understand what all of that means, which I love. But it is these long lists of kind of
Yeah,
things. Which brings
yeah.
me to my first question. What is missing from that list?
Oh God. I don't think I think I should take things away from that list.
Okay.
So interestingly, we're just at the cusp of rebranding Work Pirates because nobody really gets the pirate thing. We thought it was brilliant. We've had a good 5 years run with it, but
Yeah.
we're going to be changing the name of the company. So that's probably what's missing. So it's going from Work Pirates, which people are like, yeah, explain the pirate thing, to the deprogramming company, because
To
that's
the what, sorry?
deprogramming company.
Okay.
So what that means is that we have a social enterprise that supports children in schools, helping them understand what their strengths are. My partner James will be more kind of more central to that business as well because he's a coach and he deprograms people's, you know, limiting beliefs, etc. And then I can write as many books about deprogramming as I want to.
Amazing. And so I say presumably, my
Mhm.
interpretation then of the pirate bit is actually we're going to break the rules because we don't believe the rules serve us.
Yes.
I like it. We're going to, oh, it starts stretching out kind of, we're going to forcibly board your vessel and we're going to deprogram as we find.
So the pirates thing was based on a book that I read in 2018 called Be More Pirate
Mm-hmm.
by a lovely chap called Sam Conniff. And he told a different story of the pirates that were press ganged into service in the Royal Navy. They just needed somewhere better to go. And a lot of what we hear about the pirates, and this is not the, we're not talking about sort of the modern pirates and, Disney's Captain
Yeah.
Hook,
Yeah.
but they were disenfranchised people who were pretty much slaves for the British Navy that needed somewhere else to go. And they invented so many amazing things like same-sex marriage and a dual system of governance. So there's not like one person in charge all the
Mm.
time, and fair pay, and if you lost a leg, you got compensation, all of this stuff that wasn't present in the Navy. So it was a better way of doing it. And they were amazing at telling tall stories. So the pirates did not want to fight because the pirates didn't have anywhere to go to get their boats fixed, and there's not an unlimited supply of rebellious humans.
Mm.
So they had to tell like terrifying stories. So as soon as people spotted pirates, they just, pooped their pants, shall we say, and surrendered because the pirates did not want to fight. So it's weaponized stories.
Wow.
Good book. I recommend it.
Yeah. What's the name of the book again?
Be More Pirate.
Be More Pirate. And the author?
Sam Conniff.
Sam Conniff. That's amazing. And that just that term, weaponized stories. I mean, that is, I was going to say that is stories, but I guess weaponized has a very strong connotation to it. It's the difference
Mm.
between a weaponized story and a guiding story.
Oh gosh. So the first global brand was the pirate flag.
And the pause and they're like jaw drop. First global brand was the Pirate flag. Oh, I really want you to keep work pirates now. But I
I
can
know.
understand it takes a little bit of explaining
It does,
because
and
most people are thinking of Disney interpretation and Bluebeard, Blackbeard.
Blackbeard.
Yeah.
Well, Blackbeard, there's no evidence he actually ever killed anyone, but he used to light
Yeah.
flares in his beard to scare the bejesus out of them. Again,
They were a theatre troupe.
yeah, pretty
Amazing.
much.
Amazing. So when does Deprogramming Company come into existence?
Oh, when we figure out how to do the whole email forwarding thing, so it's we're there or thereabouts. Yes, it's yes, we just need to sit down and have some headspace and figure out the IT, quite frankly. And I'm head of IT. That's not on your list of things. But yes, I'm the person that won't be beaten by technology, so I will sit and figure it out.
Brilliant. Okay. So this season, Michelle,
Mhm.
is all about finding your freedom.
Mm.
So, first question, what does finding your freedom mean to you?
Interestingly, freedom is one of my values. It's that kind of the
Ah,
core one. So I know everyone's like, oh yes, all my values are all like empathy and compassion, and that's how you do it. It's not what you do. So freedom, fun, and autonomy.
mm,
Understandingly, we'll probably get into this, but I've had those values for years and years and years, and it's like kind of, will what I do bring me two of those, two out of three?
okay.
So it's how I make my decisions. It's um how I sort of run my business, you know. It needs to bring freedom, which is the ability to choose, the ability to, you know, sort of like the slightly what's the word? Forgot what the word is. Anarchy, that kind of, it's not that.
Anarchistic.
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you. Honestly, it's quite early, isn't it?
it is quite
Um,
early. Yeah.
to be saying words.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's that freedom to not have to, I suppose, rely on one thing just to be able to, yeah, it's just choice for me.
So when you say rely on one thing, what does that mean?
So that rely on, one employer to pay your salary every month, or that one big client to, give you more work, or it's being able to almost diversify that sort of financially you're okay. And the whole kind of ADHD thing, I do need novelty and variety. So
Mm,
it's it's the ability to get involved in lots of exciting projects, as you demonstrated with my ridiculous job titles.
yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because that whole the freedom part, not being overly reliant on any one anything,
Hmm.
absolutely ties in with your autonomy, doesn't it? Because if you've got one big client, I used to work for organizations where, as part of a tendering process, the client would say, what proportion of your turnover do we represent?
Yeah.
Because big organizations don't actually want to be the majority of your turnover because then there's almost a CSR element of withdrawing the contract because your business is
Hmm.
going to go under. But from an individual perspective, it's like, well, you get to choose if you're not overly reliant on. You can drop clients that become a pain if you choose to.
Hmm.
Interesting. So you mentioned that you've had freedom as a value for a while. How long? Because that you're right that when we talk about values, they tend to be the stuff organizations paint on walls that don't mean anything. And we fall into well, one of my values is honesty and all
I,
those kind of things. And
I think those ones should be just,
they're a nonsense, really. We
well,
haven't really
just,
thought about them.
yeah, they all should just be the way we do business. So it's kind of,
Yeah, they should be the lowest bar to entry. Is of
yeah,
course honesty should be one of your
yeah.
values. Okay, so these values, when did these come
So
into?
interestingly, when I sort of quit my last proper job slash got fired from it, we still don't know. I asked for help, and the next thing I knew, I was out on my ear. So
Ah,
when that was fine. 2016 is nearly 10 years ago now, so
Right.
I'm okay. So I got a part-time sort of maternity cover job within the NHS, which was very eye-opening, and that's probably as much as I'm going to say on that one.
Mm.
She says pulling a face. Anyway, I met some really brilliant people, so that's fine. But as a part of that, there was a study going on about nurses and resilience. So they took nurses through one of the universities in London, I get confused. One of the universities in London did some research around how to make nurses more resilient, not around how to make nursing less traumatic, toxic,
Yeah.
but how to make nurses more
Let's put the
resilient.
responsibility on the individual rather than the system
Yeah.
that's creating the problem. Yeah.
So they did this kind of a mindfulness act, so acceptance, commitment therapy based intervention. I think it was probably 3 months, and it was all about that making sure you have that pause between the stimulus and
Mhm.
response. So it's that kind of focusing on that, being able to have that pause. So as a part of that, so that was 2018. A part of that, we had to look at what our values were, because that was kind of, when something happens, are we moving towards our values or away from our values? And so I was lucky enough to get, asked to go on a cohort just because I was nosy. Psychologists generally tend to be professional nosy parkers. And having that space within an organization, interestingly enough, to think about that. So I think freedom has always been a value. Autonomy is the sort of the autistic ADHD version of you can't tell me what to do. But that freedom piece has always been, but I didn't articulate it until I attended
Mm.
that program, which was life-changing, interestingly enough.
Okay.
The the results showed that nurses became more able to tolerate the SHIT that they had to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it was a really interesting
Yeah,
intervention.
I think that whole values conversation is a really interesting one
Mhm.
because I actually don't think we give it any time.
Mhm.
And like all these things, you were talking about the creating the space, time and space between stimulus and however you're going to respond. Without that space, it's stimulus reaction.
Mhm.
And that's deeply embedded, automated, survival type
Habitual. Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But actually, when we talk about values, this is a really difficult, important work. And it
Yeah.
is work because it's self-exploration and it does require us to kind of peel the onion of all of our conditioning and kind of go, well, is that really my value? Or is this again something that sounds like it should be, but has been given, conditioned,
Yeah.
dictated, all those things? And actually, I've not heard, done loads of value stuff with loads of different people, but freedom, fun, and autonomy, I think are three I haven't heard before. Freedom maybe, but not in necessarily this way.
Mm.
And so I guess from this, it's if people are looking at their values, please take some time over it. Don't expect it to be a super quick
Like
process.
just pick some out of the air. Yeah.
Exactly. And if it is, then it's
Honesty,
probably automatic.
reliability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Transparency.
Mm.
Well, I'm going to tell you now, they're all a nonsense if you come up with them that quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. So
Yeah.
you've mentioned ADHD a couple of times, and I am going to come on to Good Girl Deprogrammer. Is it programmer or programming?
Programming is the book
Yeah.
and
Good Girl
the
Deprogramming.
trademark, but
Yeah.
deprogrammer is what I do with it.
Okay. Understood. Okay. So we're going to come to that. But you've mentioned ADHD a couple of times.
Hmm.
How talk to me about that? What was the when were you diagnosed and what impact has that had on this idea of finding your freedom and now your work?
So interestingly, the thing we're coming back to and the ADHD are very linked.
Hmm.
So I I was at the House of Lords not many stories start like this. I was at the House of
Well, they
Lords.
do, but they're normally the news of the world kind of stories.
Yes. For International Women's Day 2020. So this is at the start of the pandemic when we were allowed to meet but not allowed to hug.
Mhm.
So I traipsed, because I'm in the northeast, so I traipsed all the way down to London. And it was a sort of a women like a breakfast for sort of like Small Business Britain, the kind of people who organized that. They did this kind of thing called they did an F entrepreneur. So it's all about like female entrepreneurs and
Oh,
all this.
okay.
So I went along to that. And since realizing the whole ADHD thing, I'm jumping around a bit. ADHDers are like magnets. We will find each other in a crowded room. Anyway,
Mm.
that's what happened. I met this amazing woman called Anna Price, who was telling us all about her recent ADHD diagnosis. And when she was speaking, bearing in mind my child was on the sort of the list to get assessed already anyway. But when she was speaking, I was like, oh my goodness. Everything she said, apart from the sport thing, she was at Loughborough doing sporty stuff.
Okay.
Everything she said, if I'm too competitive, so I shouldn't be playing team sports because, yes, I know that I don't get on very well with them. Anyway, everything she said was me. And I was like, crikey. And as you do, you become best friends with that said person. So I kept in touch with Anna and got diagnosed just before Christmas in 2020. So I was heading towards my 42nd birthday. And with that kind of clarity, so yes, the psychiatrist said, oh yes, absolutely, definitely ADHD, no doubt about it. I was expecting, relief and, clarity. But what I got instead was rage.
Mm.
Because what would my life have looked like if I'd known this information sooner? And I've spent most of my life thinking I was just a bit rubbish.
Right.
Um, in certain areas, brilliant. In other areas, absolutely hopeless. I used to get shouted at that it took me too long to do admin. And shamed about it in various jobs. I was a chartered psychologist, but it was still arranging interviews. It's that kind
Mm.
of I really struggled to get out of that entry level job because I was so rubbish at that entry level work. But then as soon as I got out of that entry level job, I got promoted sort of 4 times in 3 years.
Right.
So yeah, rage came rage. And interestingly, anger is one of the emotions that women are not allowed to have. So that scared me, like really scared me, because I'm like, what do I do with what do I do with the rage? So of course I took myself off for therapy and coaching because that's what we do
Mm.
um when we hit an emotion that we're not we're not supposed to have. And
And in most, is it, sorry to interrupt, but
yes, okay.
I find this whole, whenever I'm talking to people about emotions, we're just not trained in our emotions.
No,
We have no framework. There are, as you say, there are certain emotions that are acceptable
for men.
for men, and that's really interesting as well. And yeah, exactly. And certain emotions that are not acceptable for men and for women,
Oh yeah.
and therefore we're just separated from our emotions at such an
Mm-hmm.
early age, so we can develop no healthy relationship with them and understand them for what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to adulthood and it's like a complete mess. Anyway, sorry, the anger specifically as one for that women are not allowed to have. Sorry,
But men are.
yeah, it's interesting. It's so fucked up, but it's
No.
interesting. This is where we
Yeah.
need the pirates, isn't it?
Yeah. But we're
Yeah.
we're moving away from the pirates.
Yes.
We can still
Yeah.
we
Apologies.
still
Yeah. The
the
deprogramming. We need the
well,
deprogramming.
interestingly, with the whole we're not changing the business. We're still going to be doing exactly the same thing. We're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
calling it something different.
Yeah.
So it's still going to have that piratey rebellion
Yeah.
throughout. Um, So yes, so therapy and coaching.
Hmm.
So I got to a point where I kind of understood me and how to deal with the ADHD thing. But there was this whole big black blob of people pleasing, perfectionism, saying yes when you wanted to say no, those white lies not to hurt anyone's feelings, that, avoiding conflict at all cost. And I was like, but what is all of this?
Mm.
So I could understand the sort of the me, the Michelle got that, the ADHD bit got that. And I was like, well, what's all this stuff? This is my coping strategy for having to deal with undiagnosed neurodivergence my entire life. So interestingly, I was on a coaching call, sort of watching a coach deliver some coaching with somebody else, and she just flippantly said, "Oh, that's your good girl conditioning." And bearing in mind, I had read this woman's book 12, 13, 14 times and didn't even notice those two words.
Yeah.
Good, well, three words.
Yeah.
And it was like, so on those cartoon light bulbs.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know what I've got. It's this good girl conditioning. So I was like, yay, I know all about this good girl conditioning. And I was invited to do a talk it was during the pandemic, so we could do international talks at a sort of an L&D conference. And I was like, I want to talk about good girl conditioning. And the wonderful women that organized it were like, well, yes, obviously you'll tell us where it comes from. And I was like, ah, I don't know that bit. I have no idea. So I took myself off and I was like, kind of like thinking really big, like, patriarchy, it's a cult. So what do we do? How do we brainwash people into a cult? And I was like, hmm. So I came across some work by a chap called Albert Biderman. So he was a social scientist in the 1950s in the US. And he was tasked by the military sort of powers that be to find out why so many American prisoners of war were defecting to China. So the US military thought that the Chinese had some magical mystery brainwashing machine
Mm.
because of course the American military would have not done anything nefarious
Of course not.
with that. No. Um, so Biden and his team interviewed people and figured out that the Chinese were using various methods of coercion. So he came up with his chart of coercion, so this is sort of coercive control, which has been, talked about in terms of sort of torture of prisoners by Amnesty International. It's used a lot in domestic abuse. And I was like, this is interesting. This is really interesting. So I printed off this chart of coercion and I was like, I wonder if this applies to women.
Mm.
So again, here comes back the rage. Every single method of coercion is used to keep women and girls behaving from birth. Keeps us nice and kind and sharing and, God forbid, not aging. Um, and I was like, delivered the talk. And
To stun silence and ripples of anger, presumably.
yeah, because it was like, I'm exploring this with the audience, and they were like, Jesus Christ. It's like as soon as you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah. It's those moments of deep discomfort when you see something go, oh,
It's like, I
I
choose not to deal with this right now.
yeah, I thought I had all these things I believed, and then you've just shown me something that really makes a bit of a mockery of them. And
Yep.
well, the choice then is, do I go and further interrogate what I thought I used to believe,
Yep.
or do I just draw a veil over this and pretend I've never heard of Michelle Minnikin?
It's so funny. So many people do that.
Yeah.
So the idea wouldn't go away. So there's a lovely book by Elizabeth Gilbert called Big Magic, which
Hmm.
basically said there's all these beautiful ideas floating around in the world, and then suddenly, like a fairy, it'll attach itself to you. And if I don't do something, if I don't do something with it, it'll go and find somebody else to do something with it. So I was like, crap, I'm gonna have to write a book, which was never in the plan. Never in the plan.
Yeah.
2 years of emotional eating my way through writing a book. Um, and it came out in November 23.
Okay.
And then so much of my work has been around convincing people to look at this stuff. Look at this stuff.
Yeah. So the book is Good Girl Deprogramming,
Yep.
Release the Inner Rebel,
Yep. Unleash.
Unleash the Rebel Within.
Yep.
So what's the, I understand that the route to the book, what is the point of the book, and what's the, I think I understand, but I'd like you to articulate it. What's the point of the book, and who is it for? All those kind of things.
So the point of the book is to help women realize that we are controlled. We may believe we have this thing called freedom, and we don't. We have been trained from birth to behave in ways and punished if we don't. So it basically, each chapter is one of the methods of coercion. I talk about what it is, what that looks like, use some probably quite amusing. It's funny for a book that's so deep, amusing incidences from my own life.
Well, you're funny, so it kind of that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think those kind of topics,
You have to
if
put
it's
some
dry
humor.
and just like, look how bleak this is.
It's like
Oh
everything
my
is
God.
shit.
Yeah. It's the opposite of the Lego movie.
Yes. I love the Lego movie. And so yeah, so it talks through each of the chapters, and it's not a let's replace your good girl conditioning with Michelle Minnikin's conditioning, because that is absolutely not the right way. It's
Yeah.
so it's full of questions. So asking women the questions for themselves. So as you can tell already, I am fairly loquacious and I like talking and I like overly communicating. And the book is 84,000 words. That's quite a big book.
Okay, that is quite a big book.
And I got rid of 40,000 words, so it could have been bigger. Anyway, so I created a quiz because my theory was we are so tired that we don't have time to read 84,000 words, because one of the tools of coercion is about keeping women exhausted.
Yeah.
And society does that in so many different ways. Anyway, so I created a quiz to help women figure out which are the areas that they could focus on. So the book's not necessarily needed to be read in a linear manner. Obviously, that's how I wrote it, but you can dip in and out. And what I've really interestingly, people that are scared of it, I say, tackle the chapters that you've got it sorted already. And that'll kind of ease you in rather than just go to like the shit ones first. Go to the easy ones. But so many people are scared. So many people bought the book but are too scared to read it.
That's interesting, isn't it? That whole, I often think there's we know at a deeper level
Yeah.
that something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We know that we're more, and yet the conditioning, I talk about the blueprint, you're talking about the programming. It's the same thing.
Same thing. Yeah.
Different language, but it's the same thing. And that whole idea of creating space is interrupt the automatic, because that automatic, is it serving you? Almost certainly not.
No, because you didn't choose that. That's something someone else has given you, whether it's your
Exactly that.
parents or your teachers or yeah.
Exactly that. So and what I really love about what you've just said is this idea that you're not looking to replace one cult with another. You're not looking
No.
to replace one.
I think my cult would be awesome, but I'm not doing it.
Well, it wouldn't be a cult, right? Because it's invitation. It's an open invite, but you do have to conform. But I'm not going to starve you of sleep, tell you what to eat. I'm
I'm going to make you stop saying sorry.
Exactly. But that idea that it's an exploration. It's like you get to choose if you can take the step into it. You get to choose, and in no way is this going to be easy, because there's a lot of shit you're going to have to let go of, and with that letting go, there will be people you have to let go of.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one of the things I work with is that we live in a conditional universe, right? You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything, not really. If you want something different, you are going to have to do something. Outcome follows input. So if the outcomes are shit
Mm-hmm.
and you want different, you are going to have to change the inputs. So that fear, what do you think that fear is driven by? Of the people who bought the book and are a bit afraid to read it.
Oh, I think because we're so exhausted, it feels like one extra thing to take on. So our conditioning is
Yeah,
stopping us digging
facing your
because
conditioning.
it's almost like I don't have the time, the energy to deal with the fallout from
Yeah,
this, which is really interesting.
yeah,
So I'm co-writing a new book for 10 to 14-year-old girls now.
amazing.
So taking what we know for the adults and simplifying it and giving a bit more advice and guidance, but still not saying this is what you have to do. Um, so I'm co-authoring that with a former teacher, a lady called Caroline, who runs a tutoring business.
Mm-hmm.
So she's got all of the stories of the children that come to her with big expectations on them by their parents.
Yeah. I've been asked by a couple of clients over the time I've been coaching who are addressing their own conditioning and looking to work on themselves and looking to embrace who they really are, all those things. And they've asked, I've had a couple of them ask, they've got kids and they've said, the two questions they have, do I think that actually you have to bottom out before you can face the difficulty of the work, like reach rock bottom?
Mm.
And the second one is, do I think their kids are going to have to do this work? And it's like really interesting because the fear you're talking about means almost always we have to bottom out.
Mm-hmm.
Like fear of change is less than fear of staying where we are because it gets so dark. So yes, actually, sadly, I think very often we do have to bottom out.
Yeah,
And with the kids, it's like, well, if the parents are doing the work, you're passing less on,
yeah.
but you are still passing shit on.
And
And they still live in a
it's not even you. They
society.
live in, yeah,
They still live in a
school.
society that have all these different groups with all these different inclusion criteria that they are going to develop behavior to keep them safe, keep them
Hmm.
included, and they're going to have to unpick that if
They
they get
choose
to a
to.
point where they look to change it. With the book for kids, and given what we've just said, because I'm interested. I think we have to be talking to kids about this
Hmm.
stuff and offering them a path to self advocacy, understanding self agency,
Hmm.
and practicing discernment.
Yep.
Like you just said, you don't want to create another cult. That's going to require discernment to pick the bits of all these
Mm.
things going on that,
Well, the first chapter I talk about is it's all about being overly trusting, and the sort
yeah,
of remedy is critical thinking.
yeah, which might not be as well taught as we might wish.
No, it's not at all. It's like these are
um,
the exam questions. You need to learn them.
yeah, but with that, if you're writing a book for kids, that because for me, everything you're talking about
Hmm.
leads to, in inverted commas, more difficult kids.
Oh God, yeah.
There's I saw a brilliant I saw Caitlin Moran being interviewed, and the
Hmm.
question was, given your work and what you stand for and stand up for and speak about, what is it like having two teenage girls? And she went, it's honestly, it's a nightmare. Just from that perspective of she has instilled in them discernment, self-advocacy, self-agency, all those things that mean you're not going to just sit there and go, oh yeah, of course I'm just going to do what you tell me to do. I'm going to challenge it.
Hmm.
So with the book you're writing at the moment, how do you get that to the kids who how do you get that to kids when their parents, I guess at some level, have to accept
Hmm.
they're going to have more challenging kids, or they're going to have to step up their game to help
So,
the kids.
so interestingly, we've written so this bit's mostly done. So I say the kids' books were about 60, 70% done. But we've created a sort of a free PDF to go with the book for their caregivers. And it's like, this is what this chapter's about. These are the questions. This is how you can approach it. So we are being very directive with the parents
Okay.
to say, if they're reading this chapter, this is what they're going to learn. This is how you deal with it. And we envision them deprogramming together.
Brilliant. I love this because with your first book, you have a quiz because it's such a daunting task. A quiz to say, actually, talk me through the quiz, just so, and then we'll come to the PDF. But what does the quiz, how long does it take? What is it? How, because I understand it directs you to specific chapters,
Mhm.
but what's my commitment? I mean, not mine, but
Well,
what's
you can do it
my
if you want to. You
commitment?
have a go. It's grand.
Yeah,
Um, so it's 72 questions because I'm a psychologist and I like to make sure it's going to be good.
it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, it takes about 10 minutes. It's just
Okay.
literally sort of agree, disagree, strongly agree, and you get a number, whether that means you are a good girl, a rebel woman, or and sort of a navigating woman, so somebody in the middle. So I'll um give you scores across all of the different dimensions of the tools of coercion and give you some give you some things to think about. So I've been told by lots of people that actually answering the questions, it doesn't matter what comes out at the end, asking the questions will force people to think.
Mm.
I like asking questions. I'm a psychologist, so
Yeah. Well, it's so important, isn't it? Because we're not taught to. And
Mm-mm.
that whole,
I think I was born asking questions. I've got a child the same.
yeah, well, that's brilliant.
But why? Why do I have to do
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
It's one of those, I think we are fundamentally curious as human beings. We are curious.
Our curiosity and fear cannot coexist.
Yeah. I'd not thought about that, but yeah, because fear is a feeling of prescribed outcome. No, of there's an outcome, whereas curiosity is about, oh, I wonder what's going on. Interesting. And going back to curiosity, as in each of us navigating our way
Yeah.
back to curiosity, is it's okay not to know. That's the whole point. Why would you know? It's the difference between being right and getting it right.
Yeah. So yes, everything is just a little experiment that'll take
Yeah.
you further towards or away from your goals.
And I think that's a really important thing as well, isn't it? Because so many people I talk to want to know that this next step they're about to take is the right step and it is going to get them where they want to go. And very often they want the whole journey to take one step.
Yeah,
And it's like,
no.
yeah, that ain't going to happen. If you can be curious, if you can dial into what's beneath all the conditioning, you're going to
Mhm.
get that little kind of beat that says, no, you're veering away. Oh, no, yes, you're coming towards where you should be coming to. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's the I use a lot of Disney, even though in like not Disney pirates, but Disney princesses. So Frozen 2, there's a
Okay,
lovely song that Anna sings. It's like the next right thing. You
brilliant.
don't need to know the whole path, you just need to know what the next right thing is.
Yeah. And how much of you were saying about people being afraid of looking at this, does your book cover that principle of the next right thing? I guess if
Yeah.
it's about the coerciveness, because it's such an important realization to have that you cannot know. You have to do it step by step.
Yep. Don't think it overtly talks about
Yeah,
that, but yeah, it's don't read this book on your own. Read it with another person because you will have so the truth will set you free, but at first it will really piss you off.
yeah, I love that quote.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's
So the recommendation is read it with somebody else, read it with somebody else, or in conjunction with someone you can use as a sounding board, or
both either,
yeah, okay.
because it's heavy stuff, and it'll
Yeah.
make you realize that although we're taught that the society has our best interests at heart, society just wants us to behave.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? I look back at myself 15 years ago, 10 years ago, and so 10 years ago was I bottomed out.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, I was I knew, convinced I knew, and was still miserable. But that whole idea of, um, oh, oh, early in the morning, can't think of the word,
But words are broken.
uh, conspiracy theories.
Mm-hmm.
But what you've just said is that kind of society is not interested in us thriving. It's not interested in us embodying who we really are.
Mm-hmm.
It wants us to do our job.
Our brains are the same though.
Oh, go on.
So our brains, so those inner voices, they are
Mm,
there to keep us safe. They don't know
yeah,
the difference between, saber-toothed tiger safe and, oh my God, I'm going to stand up in front of a room full of people and ask a question safe. And so our brains are working against us to do everything to keep us small and unnoticed and stay with the tribe because we evolved to be communal, and stepping outside of that, that socially acceptable Stepford wife type of thing will
yeah,
make you unlikable. Ooh. And that's like the worst thing that we could be.
yeah.
It's not really. I'm shaking my
No,
head
it's not.
just for those listeners.
Yeah. Which is another great sort of direction to read this book with somebody else.
Yeah.
Because then you're not on your own. There is somebody else asking the same questions, being
Hmm.
prompted to think about things in the same way.
And community. So society does everything. Society does not like women gathering. They don't like women talking
No.
because when women start talking, mischief happens, or, you know, the suffragettes happen, or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
something happens.
Something threatening and frightening happens to those who
Yeah.
are easily threatened and frightened.
Yes. So, sort of my big piece of advice is find your community.
Yeah.
That's like number one.
And how?
There are
I know
so
that's a
many.
bit of a
Like
broad
this,
question,
there
but
are so many ways nowadays. All of the crazy incel type people can find each other. So women who want to do the work on themselves will be able to find each other too.
brilliant.
So
Okay.
you probably, yeah, you probably have a friend who's curious. And there's this gorgeous group in Dublin. It's sort of pulled together by a lovely lady called Katie Lumsden, I've had on my podcast. And she just decided. I did provide a PDF to go along with it, but I don't know whether they even use that. But how to create like a sort of a good girl rebellion gang to go through this stuff together. So I don't know how much they decided to do it themselves or how much they were influenced by the resources that I gave them, but um they created a book club and they met up every month to talk about which chapter they were all reading. So that was mint.
Yeah, I bet. Amazing. Okay, so I am conscious of time.
Mhm.
Um, I come to this with like three questions. I've asked one,
Quick fire
which I
round.
love it. But this
Yep.
this is, I think, is a really important one because you said you got your diagnosis in 2020. Were let go, fired, when still not quite sure what happened in 2016.
Hmm.
2018, you were working in this NHS maternity cover and had this ACT or whatever, can't remember the initials, but
Yeah.
you had that experience. Um, you've obviously been working on and with yourself for a long time.
I'm a psychologist. This is why we go into this field because we think there's something wrong with ourselves. So yes, the wounded healer, it's great fun.
Yeah. So the question is,
Yeah.
what is something that you find yourself consistently having to free yourself from?
my brain went all in different directions, and that was really funny.
It's like all of it just ran off.
Well, it's kind of, do I go with the hilarious or do I actually be sensible?
Let's start with the hilarious.
Oh
And
no, I was
then
probably it's probably sort of genes. Um, like getting genes are all like a bit squishy. Anyway, um, so it's people pleasing. Oh my
Okay.
goodness, I I noticed really quickly that my people pleasing was my response, and hilariously, my psychiatrist, like maybe was it just before my birthday last year? Actually, the day before my birthday last year, effectively told me, your entire personality with being hilarious is autism. And I was like, come again? And he was like, yes, you must have learned at a really early age that the way to make people like you is to make them laugh. So with that sort of making people laugh and people pleasing, I've managed to have I've managed to have friends. But he says that's your coping strategy for undiagnosed autism from a really young age. So I notice when I'm feeling fearful that I will reach for that people pleasing response.
And is that how it manifests? That I want to I want to entertain you and that will please you.
Sometimes, but
Okay.
also doormat
Yeah,
energy
yeah.
too. So you've got the fight, flight, freeze,
Yeah.
and then you've got the fawn.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, my response was fawn.
Okay. And when that, do you have a process now or a technique to bring your awareness to it, interrupt it, and then do something else?
Well, it's that kind of checking in with yourself first. It's like, by saying yes to this person, am I saying no to me? And
Yeah.
so years of feeling like a selfish asshole ensued, but I'm less on the unearned guilt.
Yeah. Well, it that ties back to your three. And with you said earlier, it has to hit two of those three.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I think quite often people go, well, as long as it's in service to at least one of them, that's fine. But
No,
actually,
two.
they go, no, no, they all work together. Less
Yeah.
than two, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. I need to be in charge. Jesus, yes. But if I'm not in charge, it needs to be very financially rewarding or lots of fun. Or and lots of fun. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I say to James, it's like James is my partner, business
Hmm.
partner and actual partner. So that's interesting dynamic as well.
Mm.
So yeah, I say to him, it's like has to hit two out of the three.
In every area of life. So that's kind of like a challenge to him as well. It's like, hey, if you're my life partner as well as my business partner, do you know the three?
Oh, bless him. I literally spend my life pushing him out of his comfort zone, but he's okay. I
Brilliant.
lovingly push him out of his comfort zone.
Is adventure one of his values?
No, no.
Okay, so people pleasing is something you consistently have to find freedom from.
Mm.
What are you creating freedom to?
So really interestingly, I I've done a whole kind of sort of like a 10-year manifesto now because I want to have an army of good girl deprogrammers going out into the world.
Mm.
Um, so I need to have, all of so I've been working on my visibility wound at the moment. So the sort of the witch wound stuff. I did a sub actually it's probably just gone out on LinkedIn. I did a blog post around sort of the witch wound, which for your listeners who were like, well, where's she going with this? Pirates, witches, what is wrong with this woman? Um, all
Brilliant.
sorts of things. It's very exciting. Um, so the witch wound is us remembering in our bones the times we have stepped outside of the norm, because not so long ago, those mostly women who stepped outside the norm, who were too magical, who were too unlikable, they got rounded up and burnt or
Mm.
drowned or hung as witches. So
Yeah.
we remember. that visibility is not safe. So I have been working with my coach around that visibility wounding, because in order for me to make the impact that I want to make on the planet, I need to be more visible.
Yeah.
So it's all of those things. And yeah.
I mean, that's a really, I can only imagine how, what's the word I'm looking for? I was going to say terrifying. It might not be terrifying, but
It doesn't feel safe.
that will attract the
Yeah.
dicks in the world.
Oh yes, I've had some of them already. It's great fun.
Well, even when you said the coping part of the coping mechanism as a child is actually if I can entertain you, but
Yeah.
that's not even safe because there's a vast proportion of society that doesn't think women can be funny.
No, I know.
And
But
a
it's not
woman
for
who,
them, let's face it. Yes.
and that I think is the key, isn't it? It's how do you find the firm ground under your feet
Mm.
to stand up above the parapet and do the work that evidently the world needs in the face of what is a pretty fucked up space at the moment.
Oh,
Like online space, I mean.
yeah. Women online, the amount of abuse that we get, and we see it. So it's every week there's one woman that is metaphorically burnt at the stake
Yeah.
for some, inane reason. And we literally get this. So we remember it in our bones that we were either the daughters of the people who were burnt or the daughters of the people who pointed their fingers. And but we also see it now. So yeah, there's like calls to burn J.K. Rowling last week, and then before that it was that poor lass who dared have an opinion, who was in Snow White. And
Oh,
before
yeah.
that, it was, Chapel Roan with an opinion. And before that, it's like we
Yeah.
see it. It's the warning that society gives us to just shh, stay
Yeah.
in your space, stay in your box, playing small, playing small.
Mm.
And we get it. We get it.
It's it's one of those things, isn't it? That I think there are almost like four stages for ideas. There's like
Mhm.
to begin with, they're so far away from the societal norm that they
Yeah.
can be ignored,
Yeah.
and you're right on the periphery. And then when they start gathering some momentum,
Hmm.
they're ridiculed.
Hmm.
The structures of society kind of go, can't really ignore this anymore. Let's ridicule.
Yeah.
And then when that doesn't work and they become even bigger, well, now we have to physically fight them. We have to attack this because
Yeah.
the structures are being threatened.
Yeah.
And then I kind of think the final stage is either a rewriting of the structural rules and things change, or, and I think this has happened in kind of like the wellness in inverted commas space,
It's now
the structure
ridiculous.
has
Yeah.
figured out how to absorb it and own it, make
Hmm.
loads of money off it. So then it's like, this is completely mainstream now. You're fine to talk about well-being and wellness because it's been kicked around enough that it conforms to the structure it's operating in. And we're definitely at that stage three of, I guess we always have been, because women are a threat, because patriarchy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oof.
Fun times. So yes, having the right people around you. So not only good coaches, but also good peers who are doing similar. So
Yeah.
you can rely on them. And my co-host for WTF is the queen of clapping back on social media. She is brilliant. So the courage I have gained just by being alongside her. I'm no
Yeah.
longer like devastated by shitty responses on like my posts. It's just like, oh well, here we go. This is get curious. It's like, are they what's their motivation for these comments? And
Yeah.
you'll very quickly find out they're just being a dick or whether they're actually curious to learn, and you take it from there.
Yeah. There's a, I think in most cases, there's no gap for them. They haven't created a space between the stimulus and their response.
Hmm.
And therefore they're just in this automatic, conditioned, fear-based. This feels threatening. I don't know why,
Mhm.
but I'm going to attack it because that's my reaction to threat.
Yeah, I'm okay with the blokes doing it. It's like I was kind of expecting that, but what I haven't, I, I don't think I'll ever get my head around is women fighting to stay where they are. That
Yeah,
internalized misogyny piece. It's like,
yeah. It. I guess not everybody is ready.
no,
Well, that's sad.
I know.
What an upbeat end to the point. So, um, with regard to, there's a final question I
Mhm.
ask, which I think you've already answered, but I'd like to give you the opportunity just to go in one go. What is something? Often you hear people ask, "What's the one thing people should do?" I hate that. So there's a patchwork of things. There's
Mm.
no silver bullet. But with that in mind, what is something someone can do if they're feeling lost, stuck, in need of more freedom, and or all of what you've said resonates very strongly with them? What is something they can do?
Community is always the answer. Find, even if it's just one other person, to be able to have open, vulnerable conversations with. That's literally, it's not anywhere near as complicated as it needs to be.
Mm.
Just go and have a coffee with somebody and blurt it all out.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it, that the idea of just blurting it out can feel quite terrifying.
Oh, yeah, you'll end up with a vulnerability hangover, and that is completely normal.
Yeah, it's also I don't think I've ever. There's more that follow. I was about to say I don't think I've ever been honest, and I could hear myself about to pause. I have obviously been honest, but I don't think I've ever been honest with anybody and have been attacked in response.
Yeah.
I have been honest with people and they've looked to assuage or solve and you go, okay, you're not that person for me. I get that.
Hmm.
But I still took value and something from the very fact I was open. And then you can go, okay, if it's not you, then it will be somebody else and find somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found it fascinating. So the rise of those like mumfluencers who weren't perfect,
Yeah.
it happened after I had, Oliver was already sort of a little bit older than what I needed, but just just the relief and the freedom that before, motherhood is, we didn't talk about how difficult it is,
Mm.
but now we are allowed to. So just a few voices, you know, were able to say, this is really shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're going to get loads of it wrong. And you just need to keep trying and showing up because you didn't have to be perfect. You just have to be there and all of that sort of stuff. And that was such a relief
Mm.
because if there's one thing society likes to judge, it's mothers.
Yeah.
They cannot win, no matter what they do.
Yeah, there was all that rubbish going around at one point about, hey, you've got the same 24 hours as Beyonce, or and it's like,
No,
no,
I
you don't.
don't.
No, you don't. What are you talking about?
No, Beyonce has staff.
Exactly. Yeah, when did she last go to the supermarket? And no offense to Beyonce, it's not her fault, but it's just this
No.
ridiculous,
Yeah.
impossible comparison that's like,
Yeah.
this isn't a thing. I mean,
This is like,
why?
this is privilege in action.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting. Okay, so community is the,
Community is the answer to
yeah.
every question.
Ooh, nice.
This animal's going mental outside the house at the moment. So if you can hear barking, I'm really sorry. There was chickens before, so the
I
choice.
can't, but I like the narration. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm building a picture outside of the room I can see. It's
Yes.
nice.
So my bunny rabbits are silent because bunny rabbits don't make noises. And they're in the garden having a lovely time.
Yeah. Ordinarily, my cat would have scratched at the door, but it's very sunny where we are. So I imagine I'll leave my office and there'll just be a patch of light with my cat stretched in it. Michelle, thank you so much for your time. It's fascinating stuff, and it is uncomfortable. But I think I think that in itself is a massive indicator that it's super worthwhile. I said this to I said it to my sister a number of years ago. I said, oh, it's important we become comfortable with the uncomfortable. And she very rightly said, that depends on what's causing the discomfort. And it's like very important, because we shouldn't become comfortable with the conditioned uncomfortable or discomfort of that. However, the discomfort that comes through challenging all of that stuff, that's where we're going to get most value, I think.
Yep. And the crabs will try and pull you back into the bucket. You try and leave it.
Yeah. Brilliant. Michelle, where can people find you? Where can they get your resources? Where can they get in touch with you? I think this is such important stuff. I'm sure there'll be loads of people. Where can people get the quiz? All of that stuff.
It's all on my website, which is interestingly called michelleminnikin.com. There's only 3 that I know of Michelle Minnikins in this world, so you'll figure out which one's me quite quickly. And I spend too much time on LinkedIn. It's like I quite happily give up every single other social media channel and just to focus on LinkedIn, because people are less likely to be dickheads on there, but they're still not.
It's changing though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just my observation of it. Yay!
It's like you guys do know that your colleagues and customers and can see you being this much of a C word. It's grand clown.
Clearly. Yeah, that's where my mind went. And you're also co-host of a podcast. What is the name of the podcast?
So I have my own podcast, which is hilariously called Girl Deprogramming. And then I co-host one with Philly Sailing called WTF, and that goes out on like a LinkedIn Live every Friday at 10:30, where we talk about all of the different incidences of sexism and misogyny that we've seen in the wild, and pretty much give them a cretin rating, which always goes out the window.
Brilliant. Anything else? Any other places or?
Yeah, just Google me. You'll probably find things that I've forgotten I've done.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Michelle. It's like I said, it's a really fascinating and important topic for us all to be involved in. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. You've got all of those details. I'm going to put all the links that Michelle has mentioned in the show notes, so you can just find them there. As always, I would love to hear what you think of these conversations. It was one of those, I was thinking recently, oh, do I really want to continue? What's the value in all of this? And it's like, well, I'm getting loads of value, so I'm going to continue. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed it, please rate it, please like it, please share it with people who would benefit from this. And I think this is definitely one of those episodes that should be widely shared. If you want to get in touch with the show, please do drop me an email at handsupifyou'rehuman@gmail.com. I think that is it for this episode. Thank you again, Michelle. It's been an absolute joy. And for everybody listening, I wish you a peaceful and joyful few days, and I will speak to you soon. Take care.